Good late Tuesday, early Wednesday meteorologist Casey Cloud here in the Weather Center right now, giving you a look at that Doppler radar where you see some shower action on it, but nothing too noteworthy. I mean, for those of you recovering from Helene, any rain though is too much. I know it's hard to hit areas, but you see the temperatures here are a little bit warmer than what you'd expect for this time of year, but not something like what you would get during the day where it's just excessive. But 75 around Keystone, 70 there in Lake City. 70 in Live Oak, 70 Tallahassee, 69 as we get up there toward areas like Tipton there in Tift County, Georgia. So again, we're just, in that mode where we're recovering from historic Hurricane Helene. We had that, devastating landfall, catastrophic impacts in some spots of our region here with that Category 4 storm, all those power outages, and then that storm surge. So some areas in Taylor-Dixie County is looking like getting up about 15 feet above ground level and just causing something, that's just horrific, even worse than Idalia there. As we were looking at things, worse than Idalia as we were looking at things going back last year. So not good at all, but and then as you look up toward the Carolinas, North Carolina, specifically Western North Carolina, Helene left a blow that's just absolutely catastrophic, it would seem, in toward Appalachia there. I mean, it's just, horrific. The reports coming out of that area, it would seem, and the death tolls mounting up there. So just off, we do have some fatalities in our area too, but not to the level of what they've seen up, not near really to the level of what they saw up in the western North Carolina with this excessive rain. They already had rain out ahead of the hurricane itself, and then they had a whole bunch of rainfall really quick, and it just caused, whole towns to be devastated here. There's a lot of folks and media reports that indicate that, that are apparently reported missing. So not good at all. As we just, keep everybody in our thoughts and prayers as we, continue along here in these type of situations. I'll go ahead and get our power outage map ready here to kind of go over the latest in that regard. Let me kind of make sure we have the latest information coming in there, and then I'll go ahead and switch over to the poweroutage.us mapping here. So here's the latest as of very early Wednesday morning. I'm talking about almost 500,000 folks still in the dark in South Carolina. They had such high wind up there with the rain coming on in western South Carolina. And then Georgia there, eastern Georgia, and even part of our area in South Georgia. A lot of power outages remain. North Carolina, of course, the terrible flooding, just, horrific, some of the worst in the U.S. here in this century. Almost 250,000 people in the dark in that state. In Virginia, about 44,655 customers in the dark. And in Florida, where it made landfall and even, had big consequences down toward West Central Florida too, with fatalities around Pinellas County and storm surge in that area. I mean, in a situation where you're at a little over 40,000 customers in the dark. So some good progress definitely being made in Florida. A lot of experience, sadly, over the years, though, with storms kind of helping that process speed up to some degree. But there's still quite a few folks in the dark in our area at this point in time. Let me go ahead and we'll start off with Florida then, and then go ahead and click on the state. So you see there in those areas of orange, that's still indicating 30+% in the dark in the counties. I mean, it made landfall at Helene in Taylor County, and we're talking about 4,860 customers in the dark at this hour. Toward Dixie County, a little over 2,500. Levy County there, about 1,466 customers. And in some of these cases, some of these homes are just gone, so they can't really receive electric at this point. But as we go ahead and get up further in toward the north, Fayette County, 133 customers in the dark. And, think about the businesses impacted too. You see Madison County, 4,173 customers there without electricity. Jefferson County, about 751. So, of course, Taylor County includes Perry and then Horseshoe Beach and Steinhatchee and Deacle Beach and Keaton Beach there. And then you have, of course, Madison County, including the city of Madison. Jefferson County, including the city of Monticello. And then Hamilton County includes Jasper and Jennings. You see 1,590 customers in the dark. Live Oak, Suwannee County, a little over 2,000 customers in the dark. Columbia County includes Lake City. We're talking about a little less than 4,000 customers without electricity. Gilchrist County, a little over 1,000 there. So that kind of tells that story. Lotto County, a little over 1,000. Bradford County not showing any. Union County showing 2. And we'll show you Wakulla County, none. Leon County, none, which, for Leon County, it did have some impact, but not near as bad as it could have been because it made landfall into Ward Taylor County, and then it even had some easterly movement after that. So, for the most part, folks really did get lucky in Leon County. There were still some issues, but not even to the level for Mean, Michael, or Adalia, probably, you could say, for that area, and definitely not the tornadoes there back in May. But, if it would have went 50 miles west, it would have been a whole different story. I mean, it would have been the worst flow Tallahassee ever had. But, Taylor County now 2 years in a row, a direct landfall from a very significant major hurricane. Of course, we even had that landfall of Debbie just going back into, and it's now October, so going back into the month of August as a Category 1. So just a crazy, terrible set of circumstances. Let me go ahead and go back to the overview here, and we'll get into Georgia. Still, look at Georgia here. This is much more significant. They're not used to dealing with power outages, to this magnitude in that state, and we're seeing almost 100,000 customers still in the dark, and a lot of which in our area. So even though the progress has been pretty good in our Florida counties here, considering it's honestly been really good, but in Georgia, not so much in South Georgia here. There's a lot of damage, some of these areas, the magnitude of the wind here in comparison to Adalia last year was quite a bit bigger of a difference because the storm was moving so much quicker, so I was able to get the stronger winds further in. It was stronger to begin with, but then it went a lot quicker, so that really was able to help it maintain, very damaging conditions so much further in. As we go ahead and show you now some of the different counties, you see Brooks County, about 5,500 customers in the dark. Lowndes County, where Valdosta is, we're talking about almost 37,000 folks without electricity. Over toward Echols County, most of that county. Lanier County, same story. Same with Clinton County, where Homerville is. Of course, where Waycross is. We're still talking about 2/3 of the customers in the dark there. Charlton County, a little bit better, a little bit further away from the worst of this, especially later on folks than you would think. But as you look toward Brantley County, not as bad there. But Pierce County, more than half the folks still not having that power. As we get into toward Coffee County, Douglas, look at that. That's just terrible. That's, this far after the storm here, there's just so much work to be done. You see almost 15,000 folks in the dark up in that area. Just, damage that these areas are not used to as much as even in Florida. Just not used to handling this type of disastrous wind event up there. As you see, getting over toward Tift County and Irwin County, a little less, Ben Hill, and out of our area you see Wilcox County. But let's get up into where some of these zones here. We just kind of go through them, and these are still very significant numbers. As you go over toward closer into Savannah there, we still have almost 28,000 folks without electricity. And then some of these other counties here, getting closer to Augusta now. And you see a lot of folks still without electricity up there. That is very noteworthy this far after the storm. Those are very, long-lasting outages here. Albany and some areas further west did get lucky, though, as we'll go ahead and kind of show you. Like Decatur County, just one customer. Grady, none. Thomas, none. Colquitt, very little. Mitchell, Baker, Georgia, Doherty, none. So it's just a give and take here for sure. Some of those folks trying to help out the other parts of the state and the region. As we go ahead and go up in toward now areas there in South Carolina, we're talking about almost 500,000 folks still in the dark there. Again, you see the western part of the state, the hardest hit. That kind of tells you what the story and the power outage story overall too. But it's because of the wind and the rain and the impacts. You had that lower pressure going over with the stronger cyclone conditions. As you see, Oconee County, almost 12,000, and South Carolina, Anderson County, that's a lot. Greenville County, over half the customers still in the dark, and another college football up there on Saturday, but they ever get that power back on at Clemson in that area, but otherwise not really the story. You see over 100,000 in Spartanburg County. You see Lawrence County there as well, Union County, Cherokee County. Newberry County in South Carolina. I mean, it's, you know, Aiken County just over from Augusta there, Allendale, and you kind of just get the idea. And then we'll go up into North Carolina now and try to tell you the story here where, I mean, the flooding is just literally taking homes away. And I mean, we had this flooding in our area. The storm started taking homes away, but it's just something that's a little bit harder to prepare for. I mean, there was that possibility, and the high risk of flash flooding was there, but maybe something in the future you got to think about. Maybe, you know, evacuating ahead of time when you have a flood threat that's significant up into towards some of these areas, and it really got even worse because of some ships here in track at the last minute. But it was forecast to be very bad already. It just got as worse as it could get. You know, just unbelievable with what ended up transpiring there. But you can see Macon County, North Carolina, and then Jackson County, Haywood, it gets a little bit higher. Then you get right where Asheville is, and you're talking about almost, you know, 2/3 of the customers in the dark there in Buncombe County, and then you see Henderson County, you see Transylvania County. So again, not good. Cleveland County, Burke County, Caldwell County, Avery, Mitchell. I mean, some of these areas are just devastated. Yancey County, and again, going back, I guess it'd be Buncombe County. It's, you know, not an area, honestly, that it's talked about that much. I mean, it has to be now with the storm, but, you know, an area that we haven't really talked about much over the years because you don't want to get tornadoes up in this part of the country or severe thunderstorms that often. But Buncombe County, I think is how you'd pronounce that there. As we're looking where Asheville is, where it's just a terrible tragedy in toward these areas. I know we're leaving it a logo red because of all the recovery efforts, you know, still going on across, you know, the different areas and the power outage restoration efforts and the like. So again, that's Buncombe County there. That's how you pronounce that. As we're looking toward Asheville, almost 100,000 customers in the dark there, kind of telling that story. It's just, you know, an awful situation. We're getting a lot of these areas. I mean, some of the smaller counties like Yancey and Mitchell there, and McDowell, I mean, Rutherford, I mean, some of these zones, Henderson, I mean, Transylvania, you have homes just washed away. They're not going to get power because they're gone. I mean, you know, that's how bad it is. That's just how bad it is. As we go ahead and look now, even Southwest Virginia had problems. You can see about 44,000 or so customers in the dark. We're talking about Scott County and some of these other zones here. Grayson County, Carroll County, Russell, Tazewell, Bland, and then even East Tennessee, a couple thousand. But I mean, there's some big problems in some of these counties. You know, that's where we had the hospital rescue take place there in East Tennessee, and some of those other counties aren't tracked, so it might be a little higher than this, but such a horrific storm was Helene, something folks are never, ever going to forget. You know, it's going to be something you're always thinking about in all these communities. As we go ahead and jump back on over toward some of the other maps right now, I know just a horrific situation here. You know, absolutely horrific. You know, something, it's really unthinkable, especially in western North Carolina. As we go ahead and go on over right now toward the graphics. So let's go ahead and pop this up again. This is where it made landfall here in our area. Category 4 storm, one of the country's most impactful ever. It max sustained winds at 140 miles an hour preliminarily, and the minimum pressure 938 millibars. I mean, we even had a gust in Alma, Georgia, to 100 miles an hour reported with this. And as you look here, Adalia there, a lot smaller storm in terms of size, and it was moving, you know, a lot slower, so that's why the winds didn't transfer all the way up, like, you know, with Helene, historic, devastating Helene, and then Cat 4 at landfall, but a Cat 1 all the way over central Georgia, and that was just, you know, that's why we have so many power outages, Coffee County and Ware County and the like in our area, and even way further up as a very strong tropical storm. But and as we go ahead and look here, Cedar Key, and I'm recapping some of the stuff we went over with you guys on the other day. But you can see there, Levy County, just stuff, you know, really damaged, wiped out in some cases by the storm surge. Looking there now towards Cedar Key, the highest water levels over 9 feet That's what we saw here with Helene in that area, but even higher up the coast in Taylor and Dixie. This is in Levy, and you can see it was about 2.5 feet over Idalia. I know we just don't have the gauges there to measure it further up, but that's where we're, only using this type of comparison. But there'll be studies done to figure out how high it was further on up the coast. As you see here, I mean, when you get 9, 12 feet or even a lot less, it can be deadly. I mean, even just 6 inches of flowing water can knock you down and be deadly. So, when we're talking about 12 plus feet, that's why we have pictures of homes just, wiped away. It's just awful. This is last year Idalia, Horseshoe Beach, and it was much more significant than this based on earlier indications here. Still haven't seen a whole bunch. I've seen some photos out of Horseshoe Beach, not something we can show. We don't have the aerial images yet, but it's worse there even than what Idalia was. Back to Helene this year, you see areas around Steinhatchee telling that story there. Things just wiped out there in some cases, or at least just torn apart. I mean, there's some structures still visible, but others just torn apart. And then we get toward Keaton Beach, even say a little worse in that area. It just depends on where you look, but just awful. And then Dequel Beach there, telling a similar story in Taylor County. And then getting toward Bradford County where we're at. This was the story back on Saturday. I know Hampton, some lines down at that point. And you could see the trees, tree debris, and the like. Just make sure you always, and this may not be really the case in Bradford County anymore, but just make sure you stay away from down power lines because they can still be live. Looking at a tree there uprooted in Hampton. Looking there toward those lowest pressures that we've had on my Davis weather station. Now I had another weather station. I didn't want to keep track of it like the data I do with this one, but remember we were in the 970s. But other than that, I mean, since late 2020, we haven't had a pressure anywhere close to as low as we had in Helene, indicating the strength here. I mean, just that wind impact. We had pressures near Nicole and some other events, severe weather and the like, but and just overall storm events that are outside of the tropical season. But this was much lower than Nicole and Idalia and Debbie, and a little bit, just bigger in size, a lot bigger in size, as I've alluded to, and that means the winds got in toward Bradford County, even a little bit more so that the rain didn't really transpire too much here. You're lucky in that regard, because it wouldn't have taken much to have flooding problems after all the rain we had in Debbie and the like. But again, looking here now toward some of the damage we had in Bradford County, some different things down. Again, telling that story here as we look at it, as we look at the situation. And then now we have Kirk, a hurricane out in the Atlantic. Not concerned right now with that one. It wouldn't seem. Isaac and Joyce already checked off the list here as well. Leslie with the next name, followed by Milton and Nadine after that. Probably going to have Leslie out there here very soon, way out in the Atlantic. And then Milton could be something in the Gulf, but it's a little too early to tell on that. But as you see the Helene radar here around 5 a.m. on that Friday, we had that track. I know it shifted there in the night. It was, where there was still warnings in play, watches in play. There was advance notice of concern, but the highest level of concern shifted, and I know we had trees falling home while people were sleeping, it would seem, and caused fatalities, as you can see here. Then all those red, really maroonish boxes, I should say the red are the tornado, but the maroonish, your flash flood warnings here as we look. I mean, we're talking about a situation where there was major flooding that was expected, but it just helped to make it just a disastrous scenario. It was already expected to be historic. There was warning up there in areas like Buncombe County and the like there. But I mean, it turned into an absolute disaster in so many counties in that region. That shift in track, I mean, just the overall shift did impact the damage and wind threat and the power outage numbers in the vicinity of like Augusta and even in South Carolina as well there. I mean, something these folks are never going to forget. You didn't see the outages around Atlanta or Macon, but you see them still days and days later further off toward the east. Now, that track in our area, we said Taylor County here. If I had to guess, that's probably where it'd make landfall, but I didn't want to exclude Tallahassee too much. And we were warning folks around Valdosta a lot about the impact potential. We talked about Waycross, and there is some, but probably could emphasize those a little bit more because you really had an easterly component. I mean, stuff will have that tendency to go further east, and the track wasn't really indicating that. So, again, in the cone of concern for sure, but there was kind of a jog there. It was already jogging some, and it jogged even more later on there. And then just after the storm, you want to treat the intersection, the traffic lights not working as four-way stops. I mean, it's a situation here. You got to stay away from the down power lines. I mean, again, you see all these tips, and I'll go over more in a second. I just wanted to talk about the storm surge threat again. I mean, that was something that I was hammered home for days and days, and that did verify toward the Gulf Coast. So that was one part of the forecast that was as good in terms of the forecasting ability from the Hurricane Center as it can get. So that's something that, that was messaged very well. And the loss of life from that in our area is seemingly, minimal. At this point, I want to say nobody in our area maybe has died from that. I know we have quite a few fatalities and Pinellas and the lag up to see what they're from, but just again, as you're looking at things like this, you just want to make sure, again, to stay away from those down power lines because they could be live in these areas that still don't have power stored. And this applies especially in South Georgia. I mean, you're starting to get pretty far after now without power. You just do not want to run a gas generator in or near your home or in nasty weather. Conserve your phone battery. Make sure you take those charging stations if necessary. Try to stay away from floodwaters because there could be hidden hazards that are possible. Do not overexert yourself by cleaning up. And then make sure to drink plenty of water as heat safety is critical. You want to make sure there too, as we're looking at things, as we're tracking the situation. I mean, we're just kind of wanting to make sure that you're careful when you're dealing with trees. Make sure any contractors you may hire are reputable, and then follow any curfew that might be in effect, and remain alert for looting. So I know, just the heat's kind of relent some. We're gonna have a little bit higher rain chances. We did, some areas have pretty interesting rains Monday, Tuesday, but you just want to really think about making sure drink plenty of water when it is warmer because you don't want to have heat exhaustion or heat stroke because that's problematic. As we go ahead and see the tropical climatology, we're now in early October, still have that chance of something to develop, so God always remain alert as we see that 7-day cyclone formation probability. You can see 90% chance there of development further out in the Atlantic Basin. So that's something here that we'll watch. I'm not, concerned about it right now. You see Kirk out there, and you see a 40% chance there of tropical development as we're looking toward the Gulf of Mexico. So that's something we will watch here very carefully because that will have some type of impact, whether it develops or not, on our forecast because we could have quite a bit of rain just from the lingering moisture around and the like, So that's something we're going to have to pay attention to. We're definitely watching that very carefully. Let's see the current radar view once again here. I know, again, we had all that, rain around at times impacting our area. As we're checking things here, as we're looking, and then speaking of just the rain here coming up, next 7 days, this is kind of backed off some. We had some of it verified Monday, Tuesday, but next 7 days you see more toward the Gulf of Mexico now because there is some uncertainty in the modeling. A little less likely of a development, in terms of a developing system. We're talking about, there's rain total over the Gulf of Mexico, maybe 5-7 inches, but not over the land areas there necessarily right now, but this could change. There's a lot of uncertainty, honestly. The models have been all over the place with what could develop in the Gulf. Some have showed, nothing really. A lot of them lately are kind of showing up, but then you get a run that says a hurricane hitting Central Florida, for instance. I mean, West Central Florida or, tropical storm even further down or further up. I mean, we still got to pay attention here in Florida, especially. Shouldn't really be an issue for North Carolina in this pattern or further on up like that. But here in the Sunshine State, we would have to pay attention here in the greatest area, maybe just be south of our area. But, things can always change. So we're going to be continuing to watch things. I know Claudia.com/radar gives an interactive look at things when we're not on the air. And what we want as needed with stuff here, involving the tropics and the like. But no formal update late Thursday, but we will be on if and as needed with stuff involving the tropics here. So just keep it tuned to Cloud Weather and all the different platforms here as it is needed. It's just something, that I know we'll be watching under that FSU game. Things are looking a little bit better for that on Saturday in terms of, maybe not having some type of tropical impact causing a, movement of that in the schedule. That seems quite a bit less likely at this point. That's something, that's at least crossed my mind that could be possible, but right now looking less likely. UCF and Florida playing on Saturday down in Gainesville. That game there, again, a situation where things shouldn't be in terms of the tropics, a name system shouldn't affect it necessarily at that point, though we could have some rain around. That chance of rain, could still be an issue. I mean, at both places for that matter. Both games are night games, so we'll keep our eyes on it. I don't have an overly high rain chance in the forecast. If I had to kind of guess, I mean, as I look at things, I'm just going to pull up one of the models here and just double check things again. But the overall rainier chances are probably closer to Gainesville, but let me just double check for that time because models have been shifting so much here, even as we've been, getting ready here to do this. I mean, let's make sure I'm kind of getting my, bearings here on exactly what's going on. It's just always important to do that here in these set of circumstances because we always want to be on top of things here. I always want to be on top of the latest developments. So, looking there, I mean, Saturday, right now they're really not, the American model is really not showing a whole bunch there. I'm just kind of getting the different frames loaded in. Some of them don't want to load here for the specific time. I guess they want to make it hard on me, but you can kind of, I mean, yeah, Gaines will probably have a little bit higher chance, but there's at least a lingering chance, so I just make sure to kind of keep an eye on things, be ready to take those pontos if necessary. As we go ahead and show you now here, you look at our covered area, always staying on top of things for the 62 counties. I know when we're not on the air too, it's not something associated with us, but you can go to that poweroutative.us site to keep an eye on all the power outages across our area here as those numbers do go down, which, we really hope they do go down quickly here because folks do not want to be in the dark this long. You're already at the point where you're having to throw away food and it's getting hot inside. I mean, folks that need oxygen are going to have big problems. Just thinking about stuff like that as we go ahead and see that extended forecast now the next 7 days here. As we go ahead and look, you can see here talking about the rain chances here. 10-20% Wednesday, Thursday, up to 40% on Friday, 40% on Saturday, 50% Sunday, 40 Monday, and 40 Tuesday. It's kind of uncertain right now, the forecast, but I'm keeping my eyes on things, and you can see here the temperature is 89 there, expected Wednesday, and 88 Thursday, above average, but then starting to get a little cooler. Maybe some more cloud cover coming in. You see the lows, finally see a 68 there next Tuesday. It is, a little cooler than it is earlier on in the summertime period, but still would like it a little bit cooler out there, especially with you guys that are in the dark. I mean, sometimes you get a cool front that come in after a big hurricane to really, make things nicer. I mean, not just, minor change, but really nice. But then we have a drastic change this time around, because it would have been nice to have like upper 50s on here and maybe mid 70s, upper 70s for the highs after the storm, but that didn't happen here. This is, dangerous when you have the heat there starting to build up in your home and the like in the wake of a storm. We have so many folks, especially around Waycross and Valdosta, that general vicinity, Douglas, in the dark still. Yes, noteworthy. That's problematic. So, I mean, you're not getting back to normal really until you get that power back on. You got to be very careful with your generators if you're using them because you cannot be running a gas powered generator in your home because that can lead to carbon monoxide poisoning. You need to keep that at least 20 feet away from your home, and you also got to make sure you don't put too much on it. I mean, there's different type of fire risk with generators. I mean, there's just so many different hazards involved with this portable generator. You got to be very careful is what I'm trying to indicate here. So, again, I know we're keeping the logo red because of the folks, in the dark and the like still in the wake of our hurricane here, Helene. It's something that, our area, a lot of folks, depending on exactly where you are, you're never going to forget what happened with Helene. I'm hopeful that the next tropics threat will not be, something that ends up being a tropical system, but we'll have to pay attention still, not something that's expected to be a major hurricane. That is not the anticipation at all. I mean, absolute worst case scenario is a lower end type of hurricane hitting the state. We don't need that though. And right now, hopefully that doesn't happen either. Uh, so we'll continue to watch here. We'll continue to track. Things can change very rapidly in the tropics, so just make sure you're paying attention. We'll let you know if something really changes, and really starting to get prepared here. I mean, for a tropical threat here next week. It's not out of the question. There will be some rain around, and things could consolidate all of a sudden in the modeling. You never know. So we just have to still remain on guard. I'm not saying it's an all clear, but I'm not saying you need to panic here. You never need to panic, but it's not a situation like Helene either. So we're going to continue to watch and continue to track. So again, I know watching the power outage numbers and just watching the recovery process here. We'll watch the tropics to see if something develops next week or, later this weekend or something like that. And then we'll be back next week though with our next scheduled update. We'll break in if we need to before, but off on that late Thursday update, not doing that, this time around. But again, I'll break in if it is needed for anything regarding the tropics and the like. So again, that's going to do it for now, I think. It's just a terrible situation with that hurricane hitting so many states, having the catastrophic consequences. You still have some river flood warnings in towards some communities. It's going to be, though, a system, Helene, that we'll never ever forget. I mean, it's just awful. Just absolutely awful what's happened. Where so many communities' lives being upended forever. Lives, being changed, lives being ended tragically by flood waters and storm surge and, even winds here in some cases. It's just awful to think about. Helene's going to be one of those names that get retired. It's going to be one of those storms that, we're talking about with the likes of Andrew and Katrina and Michael and Irma and, Camille and the like here over the years. Helene, I mean, we had a bad Helene at 58 in the country, but this one was something that is so much worse. So much, worse here. Gonna go down like Harvey as well. I mean, that's another name that we're never gonna forget. So, that's gonna be a storm that lived in infamy and made landfall in our area. Even if we didn't have the highest death toll in our area by a long shot, we did have folks that lost their life in our viewing circle. And my thoughts and prayers go out to their family and their friends during this very difficult time. As we go ahead and say here, again on Facebook, Casey Cloud WX, Cloud Weather, Twitter /Exit Cloud Casey, YouTube at Cloud Weather, Twitch Cloud Weather, and cloudweather.com. You have that interactive radar available. So trying to keep you covered, trying to keep you safe and informed. I mean, looking at, areas like Buncombe County there in North Carolina, just something that's, awful that's happened up there and in surrounding counties as well. You think of, I believe it's Henderson County and Mitchell County and Yancey County and the like as we look towards some of those communities there. It's just an awful, awful set of circumstances, as we kind of look, as we kind of track here. You still don't have this full scope on what's happened, but we know so many folks, they've lost their lives, and it's awful. It's awful in our area too. I mean, we had terrible storm surge 15 feet around Taylor County, Dixie County, about 10 feet measured at Cedar Key, which is historic, and so many homes just ripped apart by that surge. I mean, but at least we did have folks, follow those evacuation orders. That's positive. And we had buildings ripped apart and, areas there in the Big Bend and in the Warbutt Austin, all that power outage problem remaining in areas even like Douglas and Waycross. So, our area was not immune by a long shot. It's going to be a storm that's going to take a long time to recover from. But for now, have a great night. Stay safe out there. I'll be back here as necessary with the latest updates, on the tropics here as we watch everything that goes on locally, regionally. And we're just going to be here for you here as it is required.